Good day, Observation Deck viewers. You know what? I thought I would take a break from Remedy today and do what I do love to do, which is a little digging around and finding links to our present situation. Of course, with now knowing who really owns YouTube, Google, and well, basically everything else in our lives, I thought I would share a quick journey through the world of who owns what. And with that short intro, I'll see you on the other side. So hello and welcome to this edition of the Observation Deck. So before we get to the main course, I've just got two quick announcements to make. The first is the launch of a new Remedy website by two very adept minds that have been brought together, and they've brought together remedies you certainly won't find elsewhere. It should already be up and running as of this upload, so go check them out and take a look at what you want in terms of remedy and join the growing band of intellectual freedom fighters over on Unchained Remedy. I will leave a link in the description below. The second announcement is, as many already know, my masterclass digital pack is now available on Gaia Uni, which, by the way, has been taken down twice this week. Thank you, Russia. So I must be doing something right. With new security measures, I hope it stays up longer than a chocolate teapot in a heat wave. And I will leave a link to the digital masterclass in the description below, and you also get access to the private masterclass group, which I can assure you are working tirelessly and cleverly towards diffusing their own debt bombs. Now, to the main course for today. Over this whole past 18 months, the world has seen massive changes to every aspect of our lives, and none of them, in my opinion, good for the masses. Now, saying every aspect of our lives, and I do mean every aspect, it is emerging that this every aspect is a complete illusion to create what looks like a fragmented competitive system of world commerce, when in fact it is nothing of the sort. To be honest with you, the world economy has been hijacked, and it's been that way since the growth of a few corporations since the mid-1970s. There really is no such thing as a competitive market. And although many believe corporations such as Apple and Android are competitors, or maybe even Amazon and Alibaba, or what about Pfizer and Bayer? All of these are one and the same. There is very little left in this world that is not within the portfolios of a very few organisations, and those who invest in them are hidden from view, although I could probably make a guess at who they are. But enough talking about it. Let's pop over to Yahoo Finance and see who owns what, and attempt to lift the veil off the facade we call the global economy. So here we are on Yahoo Finance. We're going to We're going to start at the A's. Not necessarily go through the alphabet because I don't want to bore the pants off you, but as you can see here, Alphabet Inc. And for those of you who have been living under a rock, don't know who Alphabet Inc. are, better known as Google, YouTube, and actually a host of other companies, including a very large stake in Android phones, etc. And you will notice that Google, Alphabet Inc., major shareholders and top institutional holders, Vanguard and BlackRock. So we'll just stick to these two names, but obviously one of the biggest ones that we will go along to, so you can see top mutual fund holders, Vanguard. Okay, so there we are. We've got Vanguard 500 Index, Vanguard Institutional Index Funds, Vanguard Growth Index Funds, which is not who you think they are. So Google has got a major shareholder with Vanguard and BlackRock. Now, that's one of the major, obviously, search engines, the largest search engine in the world, and the second largest search engine in the world, which is YouTube. Then we move to the other, let's have a look at another social media. We've got Facebook, but we all know Zuckerberg is in charge of Facebook, don't we? Oh, no, he's not, because it's now back to Vanguard and BlackRock. So there you go again. And the top mutual fund. So they're the top institutional holders, top mutual fund holders. We've got Vanguard and Vanguard again. Okay. So there's two major players on the planet. But what about Twitter? Let's have a look. Twitter. Morgan Stanley. Oh, and there we go again. Vanguard and BlackRock again. For those of you, well, you probably know who BlackRock is because they're otherwise known as the fourth arm of the government in the USA, and a bunch of mercenaries. But let's moving on. Now, if you thought there was competition here, what I can tell you is, as far as Google, Facebook, Twitter, obviously you know that Facebook owns a very large share in Instagram and all that, so it's the same company, Vanguard and BlackRock. But so you've got basically most of the social media platforms covered. But let's have a look into another area of our lives, which is online shopping and who's gained the most money. Well, most people think it's good old Jeff Bezos, who's following Elon Musk and Richard Branson into space, and there he is. So we've got Amazon, but look, we've got Vanguard again, along with BlackRock and State Street Corporation, which, to be honest with you, is basically the same people who invest in Vanguard and BlackRock. And then obviously the mutual fund holders, we've got Vanguard again. That name keeps coming up. But if we look, and then you would have thought that Amazon, being owned substantially by Vanguard and BlackRock, you know, they wouldn't have much competition in the world. I think the biggest competitors of Amazon on a global scale is Alibaba, I think. But again, as you can see, the Alibaba Group Holdings Limited, if you look down to the top institutional holders yet again, BlackRock sitting right at the top, remember? And you've got top mutual fund holders. Oh, and there we've got Vanguard again, Vanguard Wellington Fund, Vanguard International Growth Fund. So even though it would seem on a retail basis that Amazon and Alibaba are in competition with each other, there is in fact no competition whatsoever, because the money is all going to the same people. But let's look at a different area of our lives. And guys, girls, you can do this for yourself, because all I've done is filled in the search criteria of different aspects of life that I could see. So how about we look at the current situation in the world, and we've got obviously Pfizer, one of the biggest drug companies in the world, and you will quickly see that it's also Vanguard and BlackRock with the largest amount of shares, and the top mutual fund holders is Vanguard yet again. So it's Pfizer. But what about their competition? Because one of the huge players in this market is it's this Bayer Pharmaceuticals. And if you look at Bayer, Vanguard sitting there as well as BlackRock. So it really doesn't matter. I mean, I think there's also got, how about AstraZeneca? Let's throw AstraZeneca in there and see what happens. Top mutual fund holders of AstraZeneca. Oh, look, Vanguard again. Vanguard Wellington Fund. Vanguard. I'm sick of saying this word already. So what we've got here basically is what seems like competition from all different quarters and all the rest of it, when in fact all the money is going to the same people. What about the food supply? Because I've included here PepsiCo Inc. Now, don't think of PepsiCo as simply an organisation that supplies drinks on a hot day. They actually own a very, very large proportion of the food chain. And if you look at PepsiCo, you've got Vanguard and BlackRock BlackRock sitting at the top of the tree again, and the top mutual fund holders is Vanguard yet again. Well, Vanguard. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all subsidiaries of the same organisation. But what about the perceived competition of Pepsi? Of course, that would be Coke, wouldn't it? Coca-Cola, because they've been in competition with each other since the day they were incepted. Let's have a look at Coca-Cola. Let's have a look. Oh, no competition whatsoever. Look, BlackRock, Vanguard. So what we see in the world, which is in the real world, is that two companies keep popping up. I mean, there are more, but I'm just going to keep this as basic, as simple as possible. So while Pepsi is sitting there with Vanguard and BlackRock, and they're their supposedly competitors, are all sitting there with BlackRock and Vanguard. Really doesn't matter which one we choose. In fact, I don't choose to drink either of that. We should all be growing our own. Now, what about Microsoft? Bill Gates? No, boop, Vanguard and BlackRock. Top mutual fund holders, Vanguard 500 index fund. So you've got all. Now we're covering technology and software, because obviously the competition against. So who's Microsoft's biggest competition? That's probably Apple, isn't it? So let's have a look, because obviously Microsoft is Vanguard and BlackRock, right? So let's have a look at Apple. Who is the... and you thought that they were actually a real company in competition with Microsoft, and we've got Vanguard and BlackRock again. And obviously Berkshire Hathaway and State Street Corporation, they are also two of the major players. But here's the thing. Berkshire Hathaway and State Street Corporation are actually companies within companies themselves. So even these top four that keep cropping up here, they are all the same people, folks. All the same people. Do your own due diligence. So we've got an awful lot of so-called competition covered here, time and time again. Now look at the areas of our lives that we've so far covered. Social media. Everything that you look for on the internet, everything you probably try and buy on the internet, your food supply, your drink supply, the drug companies, and also they own most of the oil companies as well, but I can only do so much. But what about, I don't know, TV, the media, entertainment? Let's have a look. The biggest, without doubt, is Netflix, because they don't just run Netflix. They've got an awful lot of other subsidiaries, but Netflix being a major one, Vanguard Group, BlackRock. Now, just think about this for a moment. They don't just own the major portion of Netflix. They own the programming, they own the documentaries, they own the filmmakers, they own the distribution, and eventually they own the platform that you and I sit and watch. So there are no leaks in the supply chain of the BS that comes out of that little box. Just remember that, folks. And what about Reuters, big news organisation? Let's have a look. So obviously the Royal Bank of Canada, because they've always had a major stake in it. But if we look at the top mutual fund holders again, surprise, surprise, we see Vanguard again. And I bet you're all asking by now, well, who's got the funds in Vanguard? Well, there is the big secret, because you see it's a private trust, and people who invest in it, remember, for not-profit corporation, which is actually just a bullshit pass for saying we're not paying tax, and as long as we keep investing within the organisation or the trust that the organisation costs, and the money doesn't come outside of that, then there is no tax to pay, and the rich can keep getting richer and we keep getting poorer. So you've now got not only your social media, but you've got world media, because remember, Reuters supply most of the media outlets. And if you're worried about okay, so the information goes from Reuters to your I will use the term loosely, news screen. So if you look at Viacom Inc., which is CBS, you'll actually see it's the same people that actually own the Reuters side of it, which is Vanguard, BlackRock and State Street Corporation, all over again. So not only are they creating the news, but they own the news that's been created. They own the distribution of the news that's been created. They own the lives of the reporters. that are reporting the news that's being distributed, that's being created on your TV screen. CBS, Fox, ABC, it doesn't matter which you're watching. They all are using that wonderful phrase from Davos now, build back better. Okay, so there you've got all the media corporations, you've got everything you've ever bought, you've got your social media, you've got everything. It's covered. Technology, phones, Apple, Microsoft, Android, all the same people, folks, all the same people. What about, let's stick to AT&T, all your telecommunications. Oh, no, there you go again. Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street Corporation, all the same people, folks, all the same. Top mutual fund holders, Vanguard again. So you've got all your telecommunications, you've got your 5G grid system up and coming and being rolled out. You've got, isn't it strange that whatever you think about the 5G system and anything else, well, I've got to be careful of this so Vanguard doesn't ban me from their channel. But the point being is that you've got very few people controlling everything, and that's talk about information is power. Well, not only do they create the information, but they have all the distribution nodes to literally change the world mindset, as it were. But hey, why stop there? What about our good friend Elon Musk and the Tesla Corporation? Because obviously he's completely independent of anyone and everyone, because he says he is, and he's a very successful billionaire, etc, etc, etc. Well, let's have a look. Tesla. Oops, no, nothing to do. The biggest shareholders are in fact Vanguard and BlackRock and State Street Corporation yet again, and we've got Vanguard. So, sorry to burst all your Elon Musk fans' bubbles, which also means, if you think about it, Amazon just gone up into space. Tesla just launching the 5G network and the AT&T network, so it's all Vanguard. It's all the same corporation. They're turning low Earth orbit, that's all I'm going to say about that, into a corporate domain. That's what it is. They're basically turning Earth into a .com, and we are simply the chattel on the surface. But what about some of the famous media ones? You know, like, I don't know, let's just pick an individual one, like the New York Times. So, here we go. The New York Times company. Oh, sorry, guys. Vanguard, BlackRock is getting rather silly, don't you think? And Vanguard, the total stock market index fund. All right, so the two top performers. So, the printed media, the stock exchange, the Dow, the NASDAQ, all of it controlled, and I suspect manipulated by the same people. If you own, well, basically it looks like they own most of the things in the world here. But let's move on. What have we got here? Oh, I thought, you know what, let's get really crazy here and go over to China. Let's just pop over to China. Agricultural Bank of China, Hong Kong, because they're going to have absolutely nothing to do with oops. Vanguard. They're the top ones. Sorry, hang on. I thought we were in China. And, oh, by the way, just so as you know, because I can't obviously go through every aspect of life, but all the agricultural stock, all the farms, all the seeds, all the equipment, you guessed it, all run, owned and shareholded by Vanguard and BlackRock, including your homes. And a lot of you will already know in the USA that BlackRock are buying up houses by the bucket load so they can rent them back to you and totally control the roof that's over your head, which is where they hope to hit the Great Reset by 2030 by saying you will own nothing and be happy. And you know, Vanguard and BlackRock are so large, they lend money to the central bank systems. Now, you figure that one out. Oh, and by the way, the software that all central banks run on for all of their transactions across the planet, guess who owns that? Yeah, it's not much of a guess, is it? So what about the FedEx? Transporting stuff all over the world. One of the biggest transport corporations in the world. Oh, no. we're back to BlackRock and Vanguard again. And the top mutual fund holders, yeah, it's not really much of a guess anymore, is it? So FedEx Corporation, and remember, this also includes airlines. Oh yes. Okay, so we've got the distribution of it all. And what about American Airlines? They're oh dear, no, Vanguard, PrimeGap, BlackRock, State Street Corporation. You're getting to know these names now, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. So even your airlines, everything so far. Let's move on. United Airlines. They've oh dear, Vanguard, Prime, BlackRock, State Street Corporation. It's all the same company, folks. All the same top shareholders. It's just window dressing. Everything that we see in this world, on the shelves in the shops, what you buy online, who delivers it, who is making the COVID jab, who is distributing the jab, who is reporting on the jab, who is censoring alternative information about the jab and all the rest of it. It's all the same people. What about... Okay, Zimmer Biomet Holdings is one of the largest, and I mean the largest suppliers of medical equipment in labs and hospitals in the world. Who is your... Oh, here we go. BlackRock and Vanguard. State Street Corporation. All right, it is just getting stupid now, isn't it, folks? But I just wanted to give you a nice taste of every aspect of our lives across the world. It is the same people. I mean, I don't know whether we should rename the planet, Vanguard. The planet Vanguard. Because let's be honest, I know I'm saying it tongue-in-cheek, but effectively they're almost there in doing so. And what about TUI-AG? Now, for those of you who don't know, TUI-AG is it started out as I think it was a German-based company, but they're actually one of the biggest holiday companies in the world. We're talking airlines, cruise liners, resorts, all of it. Okay, that's TUI-AG. No matter where you are, they've got a stake in it. And as you can see, the top mutual fund holders there, again, is Vanguard. What about cars? Volkswagen. Let's have a look at Volkswagen. Nope. Vanguard. All over the... I mean, car manufacturers, I could probably go to bike and anything else, but I just picked one of the biggest ones in the world, Volkswagen AG. Nope. Vanguard. And then, just to think there's competition there, let's go to Ford, who are obviously in competition with Volkswagen. No, they're not really, because Vanguard, BlackRock are already there, and along with State Street Corporation. So I'm not going to bore you with any more, but if you go to Yahoo Finance and type in any major corporation, so we're talking about transportation, we're talking about online, we're talking about media, drug companies, we're talking about every aspect of our lives, oil, everything. If what you can think of, they've got it. They've already got it. The question is, who is the Vanguard Group? And we'll discuss that in a second. So there you have it. We've got Vanguard and BlackRock. But a little background information, and you'll notice that a Bloomberg report states that both these companies, by the year 2028, together will have investments in the amount of $20 trillion. What that means is they will own almost everything. Bloomberg calls BlackRock the fourth branch of the government because it's the only private agency that closely works with the central banks. BlackRock, as I said earlier, lends money to the central bank, but it's also its advisor. It also develops the software the central banks uses. And many BlackRock employees were in the White House with the Bush and Obama administrations. And its CEO, Larry Fink, can count on a warm welcome from leaders and politicians across the world. Not strange if you know that he is the front man for the ruling company, but Larry Fink does not pull the strings himself. because BlackRock itself is also owned by the shareholders. And who are these shareholders? Well, the trouble is we come to a strange conclusion, because the biggest shareholder is Vanguard. Yeah, you got it. The biggest shareholder of BlackRock is Vanguard. But now it gets really murky, because Vanguard is a private company and we can't see who the shareholders are. The elite who own Vanguard apparently don't like being in the spotlight, but of course they cannot hide from he who is willing to dig. Reports from Oxfam and Bloomberg say that 1% of the world together owns more money than the other 99. Even worse, Oxfam says that 82% of all earned money in 2017 went to this 1%. Let me just say that again. What you've seen me show you on Yahoo Finance, and that's only the tip of the iceberg, accounts for 82% of all the money earned in the world in 2017. In other words, these two investment companies, Vanguard and BlackRock, hold a monopoly on all industries in the world, and they, in turn, are owned by the richest families in the world, some of whom are royalty and who have been very rich since before the Industrial Revolution. But the question is, I suppose, why doesn't everybody know this? Why aren't there movies and documentaries about this? Why isn't it in the news? Well, now you know why. Because 90% of all the international media is owned by the 9 media conglomerates, and they, in turn, are beholden to the shareholders of Vanguard and BlackRock. Are you getting this, folks? And I'm sure you can remember the late, great George Carlin when he said, "It's a small club, and you ain't in it." We really need to understand, or as they say, Sun Tzu, I keep quoting Sun Tzu in The Art of War, but it is best to know thy enemy. And it is less than a handful of these people, that these huge investment companies, they determine the course of money flow across the world. They are the main characters of the play that we are witnessing. And to be honest with you, we really need to wake up to the fact of who's actually pulling the puppet strings that we see on every facet of the public platforms in society. And sitting behind those is less than 1% of the total population of the planet. In fact, it's probably down to 0.001% when you take a look at Vanguard, BlackRock and their own subsidiaries. And even according to the website of the World Economic Forum, the Gates Foundation is the biggest sponsor of the WHO. Obviously, that was after Donald Trump quit the USA financial support to the WHO in 2020. So the Gates Foundation is one of the biggest, most influential entities in everything that concerns our health. And also, the Gates Foundation works closely with the biggest pharma companies, which you've already seen. And amongst those pharma companies are Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, BioNTech and Bayer, all shareholdered, owned majorly by the two companies I've already told you about, Vanguard and BlackRock. You see, and also obviously you've got to understand that Bill Gates wasn't a poor computer nerd who miraculously became very rich. He is from a very rich family that works for the absolute elite. His Microsoft is owned by Vanguard, BlackRock and Berkshire Hathaway, but the Gates Foundation, after BlackRock and Vanguard, is the biggest shareholder in Berkshire Hathaway. And he's even a member, or he was even a member of the board at Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, you would need months to weed out everything on this, but I think you get the picture. The problem that we've got is that you've got this unholy connection between the media, the pharmaceutical companies, the TV programming, the news corporations, the food that you're eating. And it's absolutely, I know, it's a dangerous situation. You've got everything from the Gates Foundation, the Open Society Foundation of Soros, the Clinton Foundation. They're all involved and they form a bridge to the current situation. And while we all sit on a daily basis deciding, can we choose between all sorts of documentaries and TV programs, but none of them seem to cover this particular subject. But is it not interesting enough, or are there any other interests at play? And if you take a quick look at Wikipedia, it gives you the answers, because they say, not that you can trust Wikipedia either, but about 90% of the international media is owned by 9 media conglomerates. Now, whether we take the monopolistic Netflix, which we've already seen by Vanguard and BlackRock, and Amazon, which we know, or enormous concerns that many of those daughter companies own, like Time Warner, the Walt Disney Corporation, Comcast, Fox, Viacom, CBS, we see all the same names own those stocks. These corporations not only make all the programs, movies and documentaries, but also own the channels on which these are broadcasts. So not only the industries, but the information is owned by the elite. So now you can probably understand why you never see this on the mainstream media, because the mainstream media are the very people that are creating controversy in other areas of the world that we believe should be reported. But when you basically own the planet, who's going to be your voice? So folks, you've got to understand that even the daily news of all these media outlets, the diverse news media, do not actually produce news. They use information and footage from press agencies, ANP and Reuters, and again, these agencies are not independent. ANP is owned by, I think it's Talpa and John de Mol. Thomson Reuters is owned by the powerful Canadian Thomson family, who have got major shares in Vanguard and BlackRock. And also, you know, these are the biggest sponsors worldwide of media-related projects. They educate journalists, they publish study books, they provide training spaces and press agencies, and work closely together with the big corporations Google and Facebook, which they also own. So you see, this is the most powerful organization in the world. And all of the news organizations, they work under this thing called Project Syndicate. And together with the press agencies, and the link between all worldwide media outlets, when news anchors reap their information from their auto cues, the chances are that the next one from these organizations is going to be exactly the same as the last one, which is why the reason that worldwide media shows synchronicity in their reporting, because they're all controlled and owned by the same people. Now, according to some critics, the World Economic Forum is for rich businesses to do business with other businesses or politicians. And for most members, the WEF would support personal gain instead of being a means to solve the world's problems. I mean, think about it. Why would there be so many world problems if the industry leaders, bankers and politicians all the way back from 1971 onwards have gathered every year at Davos to solve these problems? Isn't it illogical that after 50 years of meetings between environmentalists and the CEOs of the most polluting companies, nature is gradually doing worse, not better? That those critics are right. It's clear when we look at the main partners that together make up more than half of the budget of the World Economic Forum. Because these are BlackRock, the Open Society Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and many big companies from which Vanguard and BlackRock own the stocks. The chairman and founder of the World Economic Forum is Klaus Schwab, a Swiss professor and businessman. In his book, The Great Reset, he writes about the plans of his organization. The coronavirus is, according to him, a great opportunity to reset our society. He calls it Build Back Better, and the slogan, as you all know, is now on the lips of all globalist politicians and news outlets across the world, and now you know why. Our old society must switch to a new one, says Schwab. The people own nothing but work for the state to have their primary needs met. The World Economic Forum says it's necessary for the consumption society of the elite forced upon us is not sustainable anymore. Schwab says in his book that we will never return to the old normal, and the World Economic Forum published a video recently, obviously, to make clear that by 2030 we will own nothing, but we will be happy. You know, if you listen to my channel, then you will probably heard of the New World Order, and obviously the media wants us to believe that this is just another conspiracy theory. Yet it has been talked about by leaders for decades, not just George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, Nelson Mandela, but also world famous philanthropists like Cecil Rhodes, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, and even recently George Soros. The United Nations presented in 2015 their controversial Agenda 2030. It's almost identical to the Great Reset of Klaus Schwab. The UN wants to make sure, as does Schwab, that in 2030 poverty, hunger, pollution and disease no longer plague the earth. That's the window dressing. It sounds nice, but wait till you read the small print. The plan is that Agenda 2030 will be paid by us, the citizens, like they asked of us now to give away our rights for public health. They will ask us to give away our wealth to battle poverty, which they created in the first place. These are no conspiracy theories. It's all on their official website. It comes down to this. The UN wants taxes from the Western countries to be split by the megacorporations of the elite to create a brand new society and the new infrastructure. Because, according to them, fossil fuels are gone in 2030, although I have my own opinions on the use of fossil fuels, or should I more like say the need not to use them. But for that particular project, the United Nations says they need a world government, namely the United Nations themselves. And the UN agrees with Schwab that a pandemic is a golden chance to accelerate the implementation of Agenda 2030. And it is very concerning that the World Economic Forum and the UN openly admit that pandemics and other catastrophes can be used to reshape society. I have no idea how long this particular episode will remain on Vanguard's platform here, or more likely, if it does get taken down, then you can be 100% sure that truth is the victim, since none of what I have said or shown to you is speculation or opinion. It's simply cold, hard facts. Well, now you know who owns the world, who is accountable for around 85% of all money transactions, and where it's going. How did we get to this point where the likes of Davos members maintain and increase control of every aspect of our lives? I'm not sure. But one thing I am sure of, that if we do nothing, then we truly have devolved from primates to inmates. And I don't believe there is a magic bullet that will change any of this, since the major players have infiltrated every aspect of what it means to be a sentient being, and I think therein lies the key. It is about taking personal responsibility for your actions. Learn how to grow your own food, filter your own water, stock and preserve what will sustain you, and boycott any and all corporations that insist on you giving up something in order to gain something which is your living right in the first place. Personally, I think my generation has less to lose than the next, and all parents should consider educating your children on how to survive in a world run by technocrats and psychopaths who want nothing more than to literally own the planet. It's one thing for the World Economic Forum to say you will own nothing and be happy, but the question is, who will own everything? And I believe you now know you have the answer to that question. So, until next time, if there is a next time, question everything, believe nothing, and stay curious. And I'll see you on deck very soon.